Shalom. Dvor's business had been a dream of hers since she was a teenager. She went to college with one thing on her mind: learn the skills it would take to turn her dream into reality. Here she stood at the Western Wall, offering thanks to God for making it happen. Her teenage dream had turned into a 20-store empire with over 300 employees. She couldn't be happier and was full of gratitude to Hashem for making it happen. Dvar had promised herself that as soon as her business was sufficiently self-sustaining and her constant attention wasn't required, she would hand the day-to-day reins over to someone else and get involved in more meaningful pursuits, helping those less blessed than she was. As she took in the sights and sounds of the Kotel, she began to think of how best to help others, and realized that it was no easy task. Dvar was no fool, and along with her business success, she had become a scholar of sorts in Bible studies as well. As the weight of the decisions of how to most effectively spread her assets bore down on her, she thought back to Avram and this week's Sedra. In this week's Sedra, God describes Avram as very heavy with cattle, with silver, with gold. Like most people, Dvar originally understood this word heavy to be a poetic description of Avram's vast wealth. But now she understood, just as the Ibn Ezra did, that wealth is a burden, and one with many possessions has a great burden. To Dvar, the idea of wealth being a burden mirrored statements by our sages in Pirkei Avos and King Solomon in Koheles. Our sages stated the more possessions, the more anxiety, and King Solomon wrote, "One who loves money will never be satisfied with money." Unlike later in the Torah, where Avram was described as having everything, and Rashi understood it to mean a son, here wealth isn't described as everything, it is described as a burden. Dvar understood that her task as a woman with deep resources was as much of a challenge as being a woman lacking resources. Although she was blessed not to have to worry about putting food on her table, she was burdened with the decision of how best to use her wealth to help others. Shabbat Shalom.